This is the 12.3-inch infotainment system that you're going to find inside of the QX60 and a number of other Infiniti vehicles. There are technically two different options of this screen available. So it's either going to be one with factory navigation or one without. If you have one without factory navigation, not a big deal because you can still hook up over Android and iPhone devices to use Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze right through the screen. But I'll show you that one as we get into the phone. First thing I want to point out is that down the center stack, there are a few different buttons that are available. And then there's this little rotary dial as well. So you've got a hot button press in order to pull up your audio. You can also go back home. There's the option of going to map, full screen as well. And then you've got a basic back button. And then there's also this little dial that you can use in order to shoot across and move to different parts of the screen, which is really neat. So you're going to see me kind of jumping in between the different options on the screen here, maybe not even using the touch screen because you've got the flexibility of just using the dial down the center in order to move around and jump between all of the available options as you go. So that's a really neat one. I honestly love that the Infiniti has this option. So rather than fiddling with the screen, you can do most of the functions using that dial down the center instead. But let's dive in. So we're going to start off on the main screen. So you can see there are a few options available. So you've got your clock along the very top. You can turn the clock on or off, and that's the one at the very top of the screen there. From there, you've also got your clock mode. So it's either auto, time zone, or manual. Auto means the vehicle figures out what the actual time is based off of your GPS location. Time zone means that you can select a specific time zone, and it's based off of that location. The downside of going based off of a time zone is that if you're straddling a time zone, it could potentially jump you continuously between one or the other. So if you straddle a time zone, it might not be best to do that. I'd probably switch to either the manual or the auto mode. And some of these things you might notice are going to be grayed out. And the reason why is because you're in either the auto mode or the manual. So if we go down, you can't set any of these options because you're in one of the auto modes. But if you go into your manual mode instead, and drop down, you can then set the clock manually. So you can set AM, PM, what day, year, etc. that you're looking at. Kind of neat. There, hopping back. Oh, I think there was one more option. So you could also, let's see, date format, time zone. Yeah, nothing overly exciting outside of that, but that's how you adjust the clock. You've then got the flexibility of customizing the menu. And this one I have to use my hand, so you can swipe across, and you've got the option of going and customizing the 3 individual screens. So if we go back to the main screen for a second, you've got this page, so main page, secondary page, and then third page. And you've got the flexibility of being able to customize these pages if you want to. So if you customize, you could do a drag and drop. So let's say if you wanted to have it for media on different options, you could just do a drag there. Let's say if you wanted to have FM instead, you could drag and overwrite it that way instead if you want. And that's for all 3 pages. So you've got the flexibility to customize the layout and what's showing on these individual screens. So if you wanted to, you could customize. I find the just general options, or the default options, I should say, that come with it tend to be good in my opinion. You can also reset it back to the factory default instead. So if you don't like what you've done, you can delete it, but you can add in so many different things. Point of interest icons, intersection, by the maps, etc. There are so many different options that are available. And then there's also the option of customizing the split screen. So on split screen, what do you want showing up? And an example of the split screen is when you go to the map. So you've got your little split screen there. So you've got the map on the one side and then your audio on the other. So going back to our menu again and then customizing, you've got the flexibility of customizing and showing what's actually showing up there as you go. Audio is a useful one you can have for an analog clock. And ooh, that actually looks nice. Digital clock if you want to, forecasts and things like that, turn-by-turn directions. I tend to find audio is the best. That's going to be my personal opinion. From there, there's also the option for massage chair seats. So not every model of the QX60 or any Infiniti vehicle are going to have massage chair seats, but the ones that do, it's a really, really neat feature. So just down, you've got a little button on the side there. So you can push that in order to toggle the seat on or off. And with it toggled on there, you can see you've got a few other options for adjusting some things. So you've got the flexibility to adjust it. Do you want lumbar versus relaxing versus refreshing instead? So more of like a full body massage. And then you can also adjust the intensity and the speed. And that's the same for the first row seats of the driver and for the passenger side, which is amazing. And then another cool thing is that as you go to adjust the seat, it's also going to show you what's going on right in the screen. And again, same thing, same for driver passenger side. Are you adjusting what's going on with the lumbar support? Are you moving the backrest? Are you moving the seat up or down? Whatever the case may be. So just kind of neat. So there's just kind of one other thing showing you what's actually going on. Next screen over, you've got the option for factory navigation. So you can go home if you've set up a saved address, which I'll show you as we get into the map. You can look at notifications. You've got your point of interest icons. You can shoot across. So if your phone was connected, you'd also be able to show call history there. And one more screen, SiriusXM traffic, your current weather, and things like that. So it is kind of cool that you've got so much flexibility. And again, like I said, the flexibility of being able to customize the screen. Next up, let's go into adding a phone. So hopping down on the bottom of the screen there and across, let's go into phone. So as of right now, there are no phones connected. So we're going to start off on the iPhone side of things. So what you're going to do is go to your phone's Bluetooth and you're looking for my QX60. Pins match up, so we're going to pair. Do you want to allow contacts and favorites to sync? I'm going to say no because this is a press vehicle. Obviously, if it was your ride, I would absolutely recommend saying yes to that. Ooh, and then there we go. Next best part is that it is wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You still do have the flexibility of using wires as well. So if you want to, they are backwards compatible. So you can use USB cables if you want to, but having the flexibility to go wireless is amazing. So let's go yes on this one. Yes, we want to use that. And that's one thing. So you might have noticed it said Wi-Fi there. So Android Auto, Apple CarPlay are hooked up over Wi-Fi. So you can just hook your phone up over Bluetooth if you wanted to either stream audio, or if you wanted to make phone calls, or if you wanted to connect to Wi-Fi, you can run Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. But you've got this nice split screen available there as well. You can push this icon in order to get to your icon view. Back to this view. Kind of neat. So neat. Along the top left-hand side, you've got your current time, connection level, and battery level, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which means miscellaneous application was open last, and then there's a button to go between either this page or this one. And it doesn't look like we've got the flexibility of going full screen, unfortunately, but you've at least got this option and you can see what's going on along the side if you're listening to audio. But there are so many apps available. Now, it doesn't matter if you're using Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze. On the Apple side of things, you aren't going to be pinched to zoom. So you'd have to go in and out this way, push it into yourself. You can search, look at previous destinations. And that's the same way with Google Maps. So you hop into Google Maps there, no pinch to zoom. You've got to go this way to zoom in and out. You can search for addresses on Google Maps. You've also got the flexibility of using the gear icon to avoid highways, toll roads, ferries, and things like that. You can change up your map colors. You look at traffic, north, up, and adjust your volume. And then for my Waze users, also have that installed. So you've got Waze there. You can search for addresses, star out. You can also search by voice. And then you can also let people know of traffic, police, crashes, and things like that. One other nice thing is that you can push and hold the voice command prompt on the steering wheel. And that's also going to activate your Siri Assistant instead, which is great. So you can you can make phone calls, you can search for addresses and things like that using your voice. And then so many different audio applications. But one thing to note, the screen does not support video playback. So I've got YouTube on here. It's strictly YouTube Music, VLC, same idea. You can strictly stream audio. But there are so many different audio apps available. If you wanted to listen to live library books, Hoopla, you can look at that for your local library. There's Live One, which is a radio app. You can listen to podcasts and things like that. And then you'll notice as I jump between different options, it's actually it's changing it up as we go here. It's kind of neat. And then back home. But that's how you use Apple CarPlay inside of the QX60. There is one thing that you can also do, and on your phone, if you jump into your general settings, you're going to go into CarPlay, and you've got your QX60. You can forget the car, you can customize, and then you can turn CarPlay off while the phone is locked. I want to customize and show you something. So if you prefer to use your podcasts, and you like audiobooks, and you also want to use Google Maps, you can adjust these out. You can also delete. So if you're not a fan of podcasts, you don't like audiobooks, you don't want to use Google Maps, you can actually fully remove them from the screen. But they're saved on the phone at the very bottom. So you could also hit the little plus button there in order to bring them back in. But if you modified this too much and you're not a fan of the layout, along the top right side of the phone, there's a reset button. So you're just going to hit reset layout, and that brings you back to the factory default screen there instead. It's pretty neat. You can push the button there in order to go back home. You can launch back into CarPlay. You can push the home button down the center stack there to jump back in, go back into CarPlay if you want to. You can look at basic info, hop back in, but let's go into sources now. So you can see there, hopping into Apple CarPlay as an option for audio sources because I'm hooked up over Apple CarPlay. But if we go into our settings, actually, I guess we could go connections that way. You're going to go devices. You've got yourself connected over Apple CarPlay. If you wanted to disconnect and just use Bluetooth, you've got the flexibility to do that. So it's hooked me up to the phone, and I'm hooked up for the audio. I can hit info there to look at some device information. So I've got calls, phone books, texts, receiving texts, audio streaming, and then smartphone projection. So if you wanted to, you could have it automatically start up when you start the vehicle up. So it's automatically going to connect. It can ask you if it wants to connect, or nothing will ever happen. So it'll just never automatically connect for Apple CarPlay. But if you've got Apple CarPlay set up, definitely recommend keeping that one turned on. And then from there, you can hit this little icon for allowing two phones simultaneously. And then you've also got the flexibility of changing your device name. So if you don't like it being my QX60, you want to have it as Bob's Ride, Sally's Ride, whatever the case may be, you've got the flexibility to change the vehicle name that way instead. But that's how you use Apple devices inside of the QX60. Setting up an Android device is the exact same process. So if you, let's say, weren't on this screen, you could hop into phone there, but I've got the Apple device connected still. So you're just going to hop into your connections along the bottom and then just add new. On your phone, you're searching for, there we go, my QX60. There we go, pin numbers match up. So, okay, let's pair. Would you like it to be the first device to connect? So favorite to connect. So if you've got multiple phones connected to the vehicle, it's who's going to get connection priority. I'm going to say yes to this one. And then there, it's asking me, do I want to allow access to my contacts, messages? I'm going to say no, again, because this is not my vehicle. If it was yours, you could say yes there. But you can now see that I'm connected to the Galaxy. And I mean, very straightforward to do that. You can hit the little info icon there. You've got device information. You can go back, and then you can also do a mix and match. So let's say if you wanted to have one phone hooked up for your phone calls, and then the other one hooked up for audio. You can kind of do a little bit of a mix and match there, which is great. So you can either be hooked up to Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but it's essentially going to be a little bit of a mix and match this way instead. All right, now one thing that I noticed, I thought that it was wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. It looks like it's strictly wireless Apple CarPlay, and it's going to be a wired connection for Android Auto. So, just going to take your USB cable there, and I'm actually curious what's going to happen here. So, opposite end of the cable, we're just plugging ourselves in. Okay. And there we go, so Android Auto. So that does look like that's the case. So Android Auto is going to be a wired connection inside the vehicle. But next, we want to use Android Auto. Yes, we want to use it with the device. Okay. There we go. So Android Auto is showing us connected there. So let's hop back home for a second and hop into Android Auto. There we go. All right, so Android Auto, you do have the flexibility of doing it, but it looks like it's a wired connection because if I unplug, that should disable. Yeah, so that's the case. So it's wireless Apple CarPlay, wired Android Auto, but still you've at least got Android Auto as an option. Along the very bottom, you've got your icon view back to the home view. You could also use your Google Assistant that way. You can push and hold the voice command prompt on the steering wheel in order to go that way instead. You've got your map on the very bottom. And you've also got podcasts, your audio, your phone, and then some settings. And then there's also what's going on with your connection status and then a few other things. Pushing this button brings you back to this little home screen there. And you can see there a ton of different options that are available. Now, one thing to note, this phone does have Waze installed. But as you can see there, Waze is not showing up as an available option. So if that's the case for you, so if you do have Waze installed in your phone but it's not showing up, I have put together a little walkthrough video that explains how to actually use Waze inside of Android Auto. You can find that walkthrough down in the description of this video. But using the screen, let's just go into Google Maps. I'll show you this one because it's working. You could do a nice pinch to zoom there. That's one good thing I like about Android Auto, is that it's pinch to zoom capabilities. You can recenter yourself. You can hit the little gear icon if you wanted to do things like look at your route options to avoid motorways, toll roads, ferries, and things like that. You've got about, route options, and a few other things. You could go this way in and out, but I like that pinch to zoom option instead. Pushing this gets you back to this little split screen. If you wanted to go full map, just hit the map icon there instead. Straightforward, back into this view. And then very similar to the iPhone side of things, you've got the flexibility of adjusting Android Auto. So you can adjust the layout of the actual icons. So on your phone, you want to search for Android Auto, go into your Android Auto settings, and then you've got a boatload of different options available. The one that we're looking for is Customize Launcher. And then very similar to the iPhone side of things, all you're going to do is just grab and drag in order to adjust it. Now, one thing to note, it's not dynamic like it was on the iPhone side of things. So if you want the changes that you make here to take into effect, you just have to unplug, plug yourself back in, and it's going to hop back in. And the changes that we've made have now come into effect. So it's not dynamic like it is on the iPhone side of things, but it's just a series of, it's just a matter of disconnecting and reconnecting for those changes to come into effect. You can hop back home to the main Infiniti screen here, hop into the connections, and you've got both phones that are connected. So as you can see there, you can kind of do a little mix and match. You can either be Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. You can't be both simultaneously, but then you can also disconnect from Android Auto if you want to use one phone for audio, one phone for phone calls, whatever the case may be. So you can do a little mix and match here. If you push the info icon, you can see the device information, or you can delete it. So let's delete the iPhone. Perfect. See there that the iPhone has been deleted, and then we were just connected to the Galaxy now instead. So same idea, I'm going to disconnect from Android Auto there. And it's connected both for audio now and for phone calls. I can click through if I wanted to reconnect to Android Auto, so very simple that way. Push the little gear icon, so you can allow both phones simultaneously. So if you've got multiple phones connected, it's who's going to get connection priority there as well as we saw, but you can allow both phones at the same time. And then you can set your favorite phone. So if two phones are connected, who's it going to connect to first? Or you could just toggle Bluetooth off completely if you really wanted to. And then as we saw on the iPhone side, just delete and delete. And as you can see there, the phones are now connected. But it's that simple, being able to set up Android and iPhone devices inside of the QX60. Okay, so that's the basics of adding in a phone. Next up along the very bottom, you've also got your info icon. In info, you've got a ton of different options available. So you can look at notifications. There's no active notifications. There's your in-touch services. So you can call Infiniti roadside assistance and then look at your basic information there. So nothing overly exciting. You can look at your SiriusXM traffic, weather, sports, parking, etc. You can find out where you are in the world. Kind of useful. The big one here would be GPS information, because if you're lost and you don't know where you are, let's say you're going off-road in your vehicle, you could then provide your GPS, so your latitude and longitude, in order to be able to get help coming out your way. And then basic vehicle information data. There's also a series of audio options. So you've got the option for AM, FM, SiriusXM, USB. So if you had a USB stick with some MP3s on there, you could also plug yourself in down the center stack there, and should just take a second in order to recognize. There we go. So there are two different USB ports down the center stack there. And obviously whether or not you're going to be one or two is going to depend. So you've got the two different options there. So your left one is going to be one, right one is going to be number two. So USB A, USB Type-C, USB Type-A down the center there. And as you can see, USB 2 is there. So if you hop into that audio source, you can see there, source, you can change out, hop in, you can go to USB menu, and these are all of the different options for the USB stick. So we could look and see what songs are available. There's a ton of different options. A little Fur-Elise, Beethoven. Nice and relaxing music. And then you could hop back easily if you wanted to. Let's go into our sources and change out to FM. So whether it's AM, FM, whatever the case may be, but that gives you a series of other options now. So you can look at your FM menu, and this, all of the available stations. If you're new to an area, I would just say start off by hitting scan. And what that's going to do is that's going to show you all of the different radio stations that are available in your geographic area. So if you're new to a location, you're not sure what stations you can listen to, you can easily go that way in order to do it. But one thing to point out here is you can see some of the stations say HD and some of them don't. So the difference between HD radio versus non-HD radio is that HD is a digital broadcast. So that's where you would be able to get all of your basic information, so your radio text and things like that along the side, but that's going to depend on whether or not it's HD radio or not. You can manage your presets that way. So you can see all of the different options that are available, and it's a mix of AM, FM, SiriusXM. You've got the flexibility of easily deleting any of these options. It's very straightforward, and it's empty. So you can easily save or you could save a station too. So let's say if we wanted to, let's hop back. I want to show you there. So you can see all of the available preset pages there. Oh, and there are so many different options, but you can tune so many different ways. So down the bottom, you can seek this way if you wanted to. So you could easily seek left or right. On top of that, right on the steering wheel, there's also a button there that you can do a press and hold. If you do a press and hold, it's going to seek, or you can just do a light press in order to jump between all of your active presets instead. You can also hit the voice command prompt.
Please say or select a command.
Tune to FM 94.9.
Tuning to 94.9 FM.
There we go. And it's tuned to that station for us. And then in order to save, you're just going to push and hold. Heard that little beep, and it's saved in the station for us. So it's really neat that you've got that available as an option. FM, and then like I said, all of the different options for presets now, so you can adjust it out. Moving back, it's the same idea when you're in AM. So AM, FM are going to work the exact same. So you could look at all of your different options. You could tune this way instead if you wanted to. And then the other one is going to be SiriusXM. So if we hop into SiriusXM for a second, you can see there, so many different options now. SiriusXM gives us a few different options. So you could block explicit content if you want to. Tune to start when you first start up the vehicle. There are listening history settings, I should say. So as you listen to different stations, it's going to let you know what you've listened to previously. And then there's also the option for notify. There we go. That's the one I was looking for. So if you're a big fan of Taylor Swift or you're a big fan of the song that's on, you've got the flexibility of having a notification. So on any station, if the artist or the song pops on, it can give you a notification and let you know. It's a really neat setting. And that's strictly going to be in the SiriusXM side of things. And then back to our sources all on the very top. You've got Bluetooth audio instead. So if you've just hooked your phone up over Bluetooth, you can stream audio that way. But that's audio in a nutshell. There are a ton of different options that are available. And then you can see their customized audio sources along the very bottom. So if you hit that one, you can see all of your different audio sources there. If you know that you're never going to plug into the USB-C port, but you will to the USB-A, you can overwrite it. If you wanted to listen to your CarPlay instead, you can overwrite it. So you just do a nice press and hold in order to be able to adjust it. And then once you've got that position that you like, you just hit the back button there and then back again. You've got all of your different sources that are available. So that's essentially like your hot button sources instead. Hopping back to the main menu, you've now got your map. So next up, using factory navigation. Using factory nav inside of the QX60 is straightforward. You can use the rotary dial there in order to zoom yourself in and out if you want to. I would say one thing, and that's that this could definitely use a graphical upgrade. So if we go full screen there, it needs to be updated for sure. It's a little bit old school. It's like using an old school SiriusXM traffic. Graphically, it could definitely use some work, but it's actually super responsive, which is nice. You can do pinch to zoom this way. And as I mentioned, you can also use that little rotary dial down the center stack in order to adjust it this way. You'll see there's also this little bullseye in the very middle. So you could kind of drag around and then you could say, this is where we end up wanting to go. But you can also search for addresses this way. You can search by GPS coordinate. So it's latitude first, longitude second. You can just start typing in an address if you want to, or you could enter a point of interest icon. So if you wanted to search for a Tim Hortons, nice and Canadian of me, you've got the flexibility to be able to do that. So, I mean, very straightforward searching for addresses. There are a series of different options available. You could just go start if you wanted to. You could add it to a route. So if you've got multiple stops you need to make, look at more routes. There's a turn-by-turn list to show you how you're going to be able to get there. Back, you can move location. There are more options that are available. So you can save the location or save the route. So if you go the same way every time, you can save that, or you can save it as a favorite location instead. And then one other really cool thing is that there is a full map in cluster. So once you've got a route going, it not only shows there, you've got the option of showing it in the head-up display, but it shows a full map inside of the cluster screen too. That's really neat. Oh, I love that. That's really cool. And then from there, you can easily push this to show you what's going on there. You can hit the little icon there in order to go to this screen again. So you could adjust some map settings if you wanted to adjust some things. I'll show you those in a second. You can just cancel the route instead if you want. So very straightforward. If you hit back, you can search for addresses again, or if we hit that button, let's go through some options here. So you can save a location that you've set. You can look at point of interest icons. So if you wanted to look for gas stations, parking, hospitals, coffee shops, and things like that, lots of different options that are available. So many options, it's actually kind of ridiculous. All right, and heading back there, you can search by point of interest icons. Looking at map settings, you'd be able to change it up to either a split view. Ooh, I don't like that. Ooh, I don't like that at all. All right, you could go, let's go map settings again. You can go 3D map. Oh, that looks a little bit better. Yeah, 3D map is pretty nice. And then go back in, map settings, 3D, so a little bit of a split view. So there are different options there. You could show left side versus right side if you've got that split view. Look at map icons and things like that. What do you want showing up? So point of interest icons. What do you actually want showing on the map as you go? So all the different icons there as you move closer. Traffic information. Do you want that showing? Yay or nay? And back. Along the very bottom, there are a series of other options. So you could zoom in and out this way if you want to. Look at the destination, point of interest icons, and you can also add in a home address. And the benefit there is that if you push the...
Please say or select a command.
You can hit the voice command prompt, and you could say go home if you wanted to. And
Canceling voice recognition.
And it would go to whatever address you have saved there. So very useful if you wanted to use your voice for things. And then you could also use your voice in order to search for point of interest icons, addresses, and things like that. But that's how you use navigation inside the vehicle. It's very, very straightforward. From there, there's a series of different options for connections, which we've already seen. So you've got either device connections, Wi-Fi. So you've got the flexibility of using the vehicle as a wireless hotspot. You do obviously need a data plan in order for that to work, but you can customize the network name and your password for Wi-Fi as well. So if you didn't want to rely on your phone data, you can set up a data plan through this screen instead. Your option, your preference there, I honestly just find adding a little bit more data is a little bit more user-friendly, but that one's a matter of preference. And then USB, which we've connected earlier. And then a series of different settings. So you can see different connection options, which we've already seen. If you had a phone connected, there would be some more phone options, and then a series of other navigation settings. So you can hop into our little map views there instead. Guidance settings. Do you want to adjust your guidance volume? Do you want guidance voice? So as you're coming up to turns, it can let you know, are you turning, yes or no? Toll booth guide and things like that. Nothing exciting. Route preferences. There we go. Do we want the fastest, the most energy efficient, or the shortest route that's available? Other routing options. Do you want to minimize freeway or toll road use? Do you want to avoid certain areas? Used unpaved roads, HOV lanes, and things like that. Actually, HOV one is pretty handy if you're driving with obviously more than one person in the vehicle. There are custom route options available too. So if you wanted to customize different route options, estimated time versus waypoints, and then time shown on maps. So ETA, when you're going to actually get there, versus how much time you have remaining for the route. ETA is my preference. Traffic information setting, nothing exciting there. Traffic guide settings, nothing exciting. Address book. You can customize your point of interest icons if you wanted to. You can delete saved items. So if you've got previous destinations that are there, you can delete them. You can delete learned routes and delete all of your previous destinations if you wanted to. So if you're selling your vehicle, lending it out, whatever the case may be, you can easily delete that way. And then predictable destination settings. If you go to the same spot, it can save them as a destination, essentially as your predictable destinations. And then you can reset everything back to the factory default instead. From there are a series of different sound settings. Ooh, that is high up there. Okay, that's normally not what I would recommend. So you're typically going to be centered out in the middle there. What I personally find is that treble cranked a point or two, and then we want our bass up a point or two, and then balance and fade are good there. Yeah, so you want treble up a few points, bass up a few points, treble up a few points, and then your balance and fade centered out, unless you want it focused on people in the rear or front more. And then just some basic Bose sound settings there as well. And moving back, volumes and beeps. So there's a series of different ways you can adjust the volume. So you can adjust it this way if you wanted to. And then on the steering wheel, there's also a button that you can adjust for your audio volume specifically. From there, there's guidance volumes. So if you've got navigation going, what level do you want that to be at? When you have ringtones coming in, how high do you want that noise? Outgoing calls, it's grayed out because there's no phone connected. Do you want beeps, yes or no? That one's going to be a matter of preference. I tend to find that the beeps are a little bit distracting, but that's going to be a matter of preference. And from there, there's also, let's see, clock settings. So we've seen this one. So a few different ways that you can adjust the clock out. You can customize the menu, basic in-touch services, system voice. So there's the voice command prompt. Initial prompt is this, hold on.
Please say or select a command. Canceling voice recognition.
Okay, so you've got that initial prompt. I don't want that one anymore, and I want shorter prompts. So let's say if you go to change the radio station, rather than it telling you it's changing it, it'll just change it. And then you can also set up best match for music and for phone. And then do you want a male or female voice? And then how fast or slow do you want them to speak? So I want you to listen to this now. Tune to 94.9 FM. Look at how fast that is in comparison. So once you get the hang of the voice assistant, going that way instead is a huge, huge time saver in comparison. And then I think that was it for the system voice. Yeah, male, female, how fast or slow. It's obviously going to depend on your own personal preference for speech rate, but if you can listen a little bit faster, that one's useful. Then you've got camera settings, and you've got the option of adjusting brightness, contrast, tints, colors, black levels, and things like that. So the rear camera is pretty useful. It's not the best quality, but still, it's nice to know you've got a full 360 camera available, and then your basic backup camera there as well. It's nice. And then, yeah, having the flexibility to be able to adjust everything is pretty useful at the same time. Seat, massage chair seat settings, which we've already seen. And then do you want your driver passenger seat pop up? Oh, that's kind of neat. So you can turn that off. So as you go to adjust the seat there, do you want that information showing, yay or nay? So you've got the flexibility to be able to turn it off if you wanted to. Moving back into some other settings. Display, you've got your display brightness. So you can turn it off completely if you wanted to. And then from there, we're just going to do a button press to bring it back to life again. I'll show you the buttons down the center stack in a minute. You can adjust the brightness there as well. Adjust the contrast levels or the black levels. You can change between either English, French, or Spanish, so a few different language options. Units. And one nice thing about the units is that as you jump between either kilometers or miles, it changes up what's going on inside of the cluster screen so nicely. So if we're, let's say, down in the States and you're in miles, along the very bottom right side, it's going to show you your kilometer speed, versus in Canada, you're in kilometers per hour, it shows you miles down there instead. Then you can also jump in between your different temperature settings, but when you do that, it adjusts out what's going on in the dials down the center stack. So if you're in Canada, you're going to be in Celsius, the States, Fahrenheit, whatever the case may be. It's kind of cool that it does that. From there, there's also your keyboard settings. So do you want to be in QWERTY versus ABCD, or bring everything back to the factory default instead? System updates. Do you want to update your software versus your map? I think map you have to, by USB. Oh, you can also go by Wi-Fi. So if you're connected to a Wi-Fi network at home, you'd be able to automatically update your map. That's kind of cool. Do you want it auto? And then favorite region based off of your current position. And look at all of the regions. That's really cool. So many different options that are available. That's obviously going to be geographic as well, but as a default, that is really, really nice. Okay, and let's move into app switch. Nothing exciting there. And edit users. So there are also user profiles that are available. So you could edit out if you want to. One of the big benefits of having a user profile set up is that it's going to remember everything, like your connected phone, your presets, your navigation, like your routes and things like that. So if multiple people are driving the vehicle, you can easily set up a new user. You've got your username, icon, what key do you want it tied to as well. So very useful if you've got multiple people driving the vehicle. Do you want your profile to sync with your key fob, yay or nay? And then do you want the welcome message playing? So, I mean, yeah, so many different options that are available there. And then back home. And then the other thing to point out, going to be down the center stack. So you've got a bunch of different buttons there. So you could turn your audio on or off by pushing this button. From there, you can seek. So you can seek for stations. Oh, let's actually turn that on. So you can seek for stations this way. You've got tuning options available there too. You could also push this in order to go into a dimming screen. So it's like a daytime versus a nighttime mode instead. Or you can do a longer press and hold in order to turn the display off. So useful if you find it too distracting at night. And then you just do a quick little button press in order to bring it back. There are 4-way blinkers. You've got dual zone climate control, technically tri-zone, because you can also adjust your rear climate that way instead. Show rear control, so you can adjust the climate for the rear way that way. You can lock out rear climate or just turn it off completely. And there you've got the option for heated and ventilated first row seats. Those ventilated seats are a butt saver during the summertime. You can toggle the HVAC on or off this way, turn it to AC, adjust the mode so you want to go into your windshield face feet, some sort of Frankenstein combination. You can also adjust the fan speed. Do you want it blowing in, air circulation, and then clean as well? So that's a lot of information, I know, but that's everything that you need to know about the infotainment system inside of the QX60.